This is Ted Hicks, Late Night Parents. Welcome once again to our listeners in the U.S. and those abroad. Airing from our studios in West Babylon, New York. So happy to be back here for another week with tag team partner Richie V.
Teddy Ted.
What's up, man?
Nothing much, man. What's going on?
Nothing. Missing a member of the team.
I know. I'm like sitting over here on this side of the table, just trying to fill the space. But I am not nearly worthy and capable of filling the space of the good doctor. But I will try.
Not at all. A lot has happened, transpired since the last time we got together. Dr. Michele is away this week in Arizona.
That where she is?
Yes, Arizona. I'm not sure the name of the conference that she was attending, but it looked pretty good on social media.
Yeah, I saw a few of those pictures out there. She's out there enjoying herself. I'm sure she's also bringing some good conversation and some good information, both giving some and taking some away.
That's true.
That she'll bring back to us next time.
That's true. So in the queue tonight we have none other than, and he's not on yet, and the big question is, will he be on?
Well, let's see.
Dr. Pawan Grover. We're going to talk about the opiate crisis. I used the word epidemic last week.
Yep.
And the good Dr. Michele kind of was taken aback.
That right jab.
Yeah, it was just like, don't call it an epidemic. Don't call it an epidemic. I said, all right, I'm with you. But there's a lot of things going on with that situation. And I was working like last summer to try to get a couple of people on.
Yep.
And a couple of counselors and drug counselors, and it just didn't happen. So I was happy with the fact that we have an expert on this evening to talk about it.
And your favorite term in the world, subject matter expert.
Subject matter expert.
And we have one. And this is good because, this is a situation that is not just New York. It's not just Long Island. It's not just the East Coast. It's the country and beyond. So it'll be good to be able to hear from someone who can offer some information and maybe dispel some of those myths that are out there as to what's causing this epidemic crisis issue.
And the opiate crisis in America is a complicated, multifaceted crisis, reaching a tipping point. Since Y2K, 2000, according to the Center of Disease Control, the United States is experiencing an epidemic of drug overdose, poisoning of deaths. Since 2000, the rate of deaths from opiate drug overdoses have increased 200%. As an example, a few weeks ago, there were over 52 cases of opioid overdose were reported in Louisiana, Kentucky, in a 32-hour period.
That sounds insane. That just the number of people being affected by that. If that's 52 cases also reported, overdose is overdose, but you don't know how many other cases that were out there that no one knew what the real cause was. I know this is something that affects even locally. I have neighbors who've got family members who are directly impacted by this. So what do we say about it? What's causing it?
And that's a great question because I believe in the queue he's a graduate of UMDMJ. Otherwise known as Rutgers Medical School. And he did his residency in Texas Medical Center and spine interventional fellowship with the world-renowned specialist Professor Michael Cousins in Sydney, Australia, who is widely considered to be the father of interventional pain management. We'd like to welcome Dr. Grover. Doc, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys today?
Doing well, thank you. Doing well. Pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you as well.
Doc, I got to tell you, we booked you, I think, a month in advance. You're that busy. So we are honored to have you on our little show.
No, thank you for having me on. Yeah, it's pretty shocking what you were just saying about the 52 deaths that just happened within a short amount of period. And, here's the interesting thing about it. If we just go behind the headlines a little bit so we can understand what's really going on. When you look at that statistic where they say, opiate deaths have been 200%, or this number, 56 opiate overdoses, right? And the CDC gives a number like 91 people overdose in this country a day. Here's if you look at that opiate overdose, first of all, it's difficult to find the case of when somebody overdoses, what exactly the cause is, because it's different from state to state when they look at it. And when they calculate the opiate overdose, that includes prescription opiates from doctors, right? That also includes a fentanyl, which is a synthetic version of morphine, and there's two types. There's one that's prescribed by doctors, and there's actually a street version, which is actually increasing over the last few years, and we'll talk about that. A lot of the overdose deaths are due to that, fentanyl, cutting it with other medications. But in the lab, you can't tell the difference between like street fentanyl and prescribed fentanyl. And heroin is also included in that opiate overdose. So that number that you started the show with, the 52 deaths, a lot of that, we're assuming it's prescription overdose, but that also includes heroin. It also includes street fentanyl, right? So the real, I think, that's happening is over the last 2 years, it's the heroin overdoses that had quadrupled. Actually, deaths by prescription overdoses is coming down, and fentanyl is rising up, right? And just to give you the background, now, we think all of it is due to prescription opiates because that heroin is included under the term opiate, right? And years ago, let me just tell you what happened with prescribing habits of doctors, and there is some culpability there. Years ago, there was really an issue with undertreatment of pain. Even cancer pain, a lot of people were having cancer, but they were being undertreated. So there was a big national push with national initiatives to kind of improve the treatment of pain. That's why, if you remember, they made the pain score like a fifth vital sign, in addition to blood pressure and heart rate. And so what happened then, the pendulum swung the other way. We started medicine, overprescribed medication, right? And that's led to some of the problems that are happening now. But over the last 3 years, because of the awareness of the opiate crisis, the Vicodin, which was a very, easily prescribed medication called on the phone, they changed the classification of that several years ago. So, this is why you'll see the prescription opiates, coming down. And it's this heroin that's kind of really, I think, getting really large. And here's the thing about heroin. Years ago, let's just talk about the heroin for a second, because it's fascinating. Years ago, the heroin that was on the street was sticky and tar-like, and then people would inject it, like you've seen on these movies and TVs. The new heroin that's kind of hit the market, it's in a powdered form that's very potent, that can be snorted, so it kind of takes away the deterrent. People are still using needles, but because of this new heroin, people can snort it, which takes away the deterrent of needles, right? Nobody likes needles. And it's so strong, this is really what's causing a lot of the overdoses. And a lot of drug dealers, what they're doing is they're cutting this heroin with fentanyl, which is a synthetic morphine type of drug. Actually, there's meth clinics. Remember Breaking Bad, where
Correct.
They had all these meth clinics, and the Walter White, because he was a chemist, he made a 96% pure version of meth. So that's kind of the equivalent of what's happening on the street with this heroin, right? There's actually, instead of meth clinics now, they have fentanyl clinics. And believe it or not, they order the stuff and they get it overseas in the mail, the basic components, because the regular mail doesn't track where it's sent from. So these fentanyl clinics are popping up all over. And what's happening is they're cutting. There was a lady recently that was in the news. She was getting a street Xanax, right? And so she got the Xanax, and it was cut with this fentanyl, and she died immediately. And it says it's kind of counterintuitive. Why would drug dealers try to kill off their customers? But because the science is not very clear and it's very difficult, that's why there's no quality control. So a lot of these deaths that you're seeing, it's from the heroin and being cut with this fentanyl.
So doctor, I have a question. I'm just wondering, is there a difference as far as, I guess, from, I'll say, a lethality standpoint between the older heroin, like you said, the old black tar that we're familiar with seeing so much on TV, and the fentanyl and the new heroin?
Yes, the new heroin is much more dangerous. It's very pure, it's very potent, and it's going to be. That's why we can't really fix this heroin crisis. We need more rehab. We need more Narcan. But that's why you're seeing such a. We never like 52 deaths in a short amount of period because this new stuff on the market. So it's very potent. So it is much more lethal than before. And here's an interesting thing, just the history of where this heroin comes from. So of course, it comes from South America, Mexico, Southeast Asia. But you know what the 90% producer globally of heroin is? It's actually from Afghanistan.
Right. And
in Canada, they're having a huge problem with that because 90% of their heroin is from Afghanistan. So we need to kind of take some of those sources out. Now, in terms of for parents, right, one of the things that they can really control, because one of the overdose deaths is from kids, young kids getting into their medications. And,
right.
And teenagers, a lot of people, they get started on other drugs from family and friends. So the one thing there's two things that you can take right now, because all this sounds pretty grim, but two things that you can take is, one is you've got to lock up your medications from your kids. And that's not, you got to put some effort into it because logistically you're going to be taking it. So you have to get some sort of safe or some sort of condition because that is one issue that you can take action yourself to prevent, right? The second is some of the accidental overdoses are if you're legitimately taking pain medications, if you mix it with benzodiazepine or alcohol or this other cross reaction from, a sedative effect from another medication, you can accidentally overdose. So if, for parents out there, if you can do those two things, you'd make a direct impact in some of the numbers that we're seeing.
And this is Ted Hicks from Late Night Parents, along with Rich Valdez. We're speaking with Dr. Pawan Grover about the opiate crisis that's happening today. Doc, I want to read a statement to you. Over 116 million Americans suffer from chronic pain, and treating that pain costs over $635 billion annually in the U.S. alone. And I'm looking for answers to the centuries-old question, why must we feel pain?
Okay, this is a great question, Ted. And this is a lot of people don't have understanding. Let me explain it this way. So we know that the reason the body has an acute pain response or a pain network is a survival mechanism, right? You put your hand near a fire, so you withdraw your hand immediately. That saves your arm from getting burnt. What we couldn't understand for the longest time is that when people develop chronic pain, right, pain that lasts for years or months, it made no sense why the body actually produces that because it's got no positive effect. You have pain down one leg, you start walking with a tilt, it affects your back, you can't exercise, your muscles get weak. And actually the body doesn't know the difference between physical stress and mental stress. So pain actually is like a stress response. That's why blood pressure goes up. And it actually releases cortisol, which starts to break down tissues and your immune system. So it made no sense as to why the body produces a chronic pain situation. And what we learned is that the chronic pain situation is kind of something gone wrong, sometimes in the messaging, right? So like if you have a car alarm, and when it goes kind of wacky and it just starts going off without any sort of thing, so we have to take, that's what's really happening with chronic pain. And so, just toughing it out is not the answer because we create all these other circumstances that happen because of lack of activity. And there's actually two things that medicine currently does wrong in terms of managing this pain. I mean, narcotics are an option when nothing else works, and it's only, I think, you have to use really common sense and caution with that. But there's two big mistakes that we make. So now you understand, what chronic pain reason that we have it, and you've got to kind of reverse it. And we rely too much on MRIs or X-rays, right? And we get an MRI and the doctor says that's a bulging disc. So we try to then operate too much on it. And, what we need to know is that MRIs and X-rays are a first step, but they never actually show the true cause of pain because most people have more than one finding on the MRI. So there's a whole process of how to, get the right diagnosis. But currently the way we do it, it's not really effective. You go, try physical therapy for a month. A lot of times it goes away. Otherwise, you get a series of 3 epidural injections, which is common, which is just a wide shot of steroids. The problem is it doesn't tell you where the pain is. If that fails, then you go on kind of a surgical route, and sometimes surgery is necessary. But we also make the mistake is that we treat chronic pain like there's an acute pain situation. So that means we have to go there and fix something structurally, and it might not be a structural issue. It's just these nerve fibers that are going off. So I think that's two of the things in terms of why we have so much chronic pain issues in this country.
You know, when you're mentioning now the initial issue with those who are self-medicating to take this, to take these substances to eliminate pain. But what about those who are taking the substances to get high? I mean,
so there's a lot of this is also, you see these statistics from the CDC that most people who get addicted to heroin, was on prescription drugs. 3 of 4 is some of the numbers they tout. There are people who have an addictive personality, and they're going to try to seek drugs to get high, right? And actually, in that statistic, 75% of the people who did get hooked on heroin, they got prescription overdoses from family or a friend, or they bought it on the street, right? So there's kind of an implication that they're pain patients, and actually they're a set of patients that have true pain and are being managed appropriately. They don't really develop those kind of things. So you got to keep the person that's looking for drugs, and they go to these pill mills, which are illegitimate, and they're trying to shut that down, where basically you have centers which are selling prescriptions for cash, and those are contributing to the problem. And here's another thing, though, Ted, that's very interesting is as the numbers, as like the CDC that changed the Vicodin, doctors are no more aware. There actually a lot of doctors are scared to write medications because they're being vilified, and so they're just kind of pulling back, and some of that is good. But you don't want to hurt the patients that are taking it legitimately. The CDC also, the federal regulations decreased the supply of prescriptions in 2012, right? And plus with closing down these clinics. So the street value of diverted brain prescriptions shot up, skyrocketed, and that's why people started switching to this new heroin, which was more available and cheaper. So, stopping one's kind of ratchets up the other. So it's a very complicated crisis. But, we need to do better control of pain, and if you're a doctor that's prescribing it legitimately, we've got to check drug tests to make sure that people are complying, make sure that they're not getting, we didn't have tools like this where we could check to see if somebody's taking medication. So, but we also got to make sure that we don't, go swing the pendulum back the other way, so that doctors are afraid to write, and we're actually causing more of that statistic you just told me about people suffering with pain.
Doc, one of our final questions, is there any rhyme or reason to psychological pain and its relationship to physical pain?
Yes. Well, so there's three ways to there is a psychological component to pain issues. Some of it is as a result of it, like depression, anxiety, and then there is, sometimes that's the primary problem, and people are depressed, and if you're an escapism, right? So drugs are an escapism from the depression or anxiety that you're having, and it takes kind of a professional to sort that out and make sure that, the person that's addicted or has looking at for psychological reasons, you're not feeding that habit, giving them, pain medications. But it depends on the patient, so I can't put it in one category. Like I said, there is legitimate people who have nothing else can be done, and they're managed on medications, and they don't actually help their depression and anxiety because they're able to do more. They're not in constant pain. So you have to differentiate what is primary, the pain or the psychological issue. And sometimes it's complicated, and you have pain patients that also get addicted. So, it has to be approached with caution, is what I'm saying.
Gotcha.
Right.
Doc, want to thank you so much, Dr. Pawan Grover, for joining us. Hey, Doc, could you tell us the best ways to get in contact with you? If there's any, if our listeners want to follow up with you on social media?
Sure. Yeah, well, I don't actually have anything to sell. I got no books, but if you want information, my medical website's got a lot of educational videos about how to diagnose pain and chronic pain. That's innovaspine.net, INOVO spine.net. I love patient advocacy, so I pretty much that's that's the information is what I want to try to contribute on my side.
Definitely want to thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us. Thank you, and we hope to be in touch with you very soon again.
Yeah, invite me again. I would love to come and talk to you again. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, Doc. Have a great day.
Thank you.
That was very informative.
Very, very, very. And I've been waiting, as I told you, I was waiting for a while for to get the right guest on here.
Right.
But I think we outdid ourselves that time.
You outdid yourself. He was just, information, not pushing an agenda.
Right.
Just the facts.
Not pushing a book.
Right.
Or, some, something to sell or something like that. That's great. Because, that's rare also.
This is true.
That's rare. As we switch gears, this is Late Night Parents. Rich and Ted are here. Ways to follow the show, latenightparents.com. I'm going to say the name to you. Biggie Smalls.
He's the illest.
He's the illest.
Oh.
There's, I think, March 12th. The Knicks are traveling to Barclays Center.
Yes.
It's a Sunday afternoon game. And they're having their unofficial Biggie night. All this past week, we've heard about,
20 years.
20 years. They were playing the music on all stations across the nation.
Yep. That is going to be a party.
Yes. Yes.
You can imagine. The Barclays Center?
The Barclays Center, downtown Brooklyn, there's a party going on. 20 years, Rich, and still, we don't know who did it.
And at this point, who knows if we ever will.
Yeah.
But you think about that. Passed away, killed 20 years ago.
20 years ago.
1994 is when Ready to Die came out.
Yes, yes.
And I should have looked before coming over. I would almost guarantee there is at least one song from Ready to Die that's still in the top 100.
Of course.
Forget the fact that, of course, it's got a lot of pickup because of the anniversary of his death and everything. There's always something out there. There's always a Ready to Die song on my iPod in the car.
Of course.
I'm always walking around with something. You have the never-ending debate of who was the best between Tupac and Biggie.
That's true. That's true.
And,
and that will be a debate from, now until who knows.
Until.
But I got to say this much. Got one even better. I did an article, but the article itself was purged because the website that I did it on no longer exists.
No backup.
And I was looking for it in Word or anything else like that because I was going to repurpose it this past week.
Okay.
I want to ask you a question. You have one option. You have one answer.
Okay.
In your eyes, top rapper between these three.
All right, go ahead.
East Coast, totally.
Okay.
Biggie, Jay-Z, and Nas.
See, that's hard because they each have their specialties. Nas is the poet.
Yes.
Biggie had the flow.
Yes.
No one can touch Biggie's flow.
Nah.
No matter what he was saying.
Totally.
Jay-Z is, he's the man.
Longevity.
Rapper.
Not entertainer,
Right,
not mogul,
right.
not
That's why
CEO.
Biggie. Biggie gets best rapper.
Best rapper. And I don't know if I'm going to say I'm saying Nas because of the Queen's background.
I got the Queen's background too.
You got it too. It's just in that portfolio, those two short albums.
Right. And I was about to say.
Right.
2 albums in, and Nas is up to
6, 7.
Right.
That
Jay-Z
Nas
is like,
but that Nas first album
was
classic. Illmatic,
but,
classic.
But still, like you're about to say, I think we got this debate with 2 albums versus 6 or 7 albums,
right?
Versus 15, 10, whatever.
Yeah.
And still, I still go Biggie. Not putting Jay-Z down, not putting Nas down at all,
right?
Because they're both amazing artists. But you put those 3, I'm going to go Biggie.
Okay. Okay. I guess I want to switch real quickly to because there's like two topics in one.
Okay.
It's regarding the game of basketball.
Okay.
First one I'm going to talk about is March Madness. You know, the show just came out. Are you stoked? Or are you not? Because Villanova, Kansas, North Carolina, and Gonzaga are your top 4 seeds.
Yes, they are.
Question: are you into it? Are you into college basketball? I know I'm not.
I'm not. I'll watch. I'll watch finals and semifinals.
Okay.
But I'm like that with most sports, though.
Okay.
I want to see it when they're serious, when they really, really feel they've got something to lose, some reason to win.
Okay.
That's when I get into it.
Okay. This Thursday, got an event, and you were invited too, with Valdez.
I will be there.
Downtown Manhattan. We are the invited guest to join our good friends at Valdez to attend their function, watch a little
ball.
Yeah.
I'll be there. Talk a little tech, watch a little ball.
It's the best of both worlds.
Exactly.
You know what else? You got sports and you got technology. There's another topic, and I know I'm blowing through this quick because I want to give the rest of the time for tech. Okay. So, the question here.
Yep.
And we've been seeing it for the last maybe 3 or 4 years. Players being rested during the middle of the season,
right.
And LeBron's not playing tonight, or
right.
Kyrie's not playing, but
right.
There was something that happened on a Saturday night basketball game. It was Warriors and Spurs.
Yes.
4 of their players
were on the sidelines.
Now, one of them being Kevin Durant, he's injured.
Right. So that doesn't count.
But the other core 3 players were being rested. And I brought this conversation up on another show that I was on yesterday. And I said, okay, so let's just say Rich Valdez, who works very hard, lives
right.
in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Right.
The Timberwolves play in the Western Conference.
Right.
I mean, in the NBA West.
Right.
Okay. LeBron James comes there once a year. Rich's son is a hardcore LeBron James fan.
And LeBron is coming to town.
Rich, being the good man that he is, the loving father, always going above and beyond, decides to buy courtside tickets for him, his son, and his lovely wife.
Of course, she has to be there.
So let's just say it was $2,500 spent.
Yep.
Rich, how would you feel when you hear that night or the night before LeBron is not playing?
I would be extremely upset. Extremely. But you have to look at it as, regardless of the fact that, sure, all the teams have the star player. People come out to see the star player.
Right.
Right. That's what draws people to the
league.
stadium. That's the league. If a coach is going to make a decision not to play someone,
right,
there's got to be more to it than just, let me give him a little bit of a rest. Either, they're looking at the big picture, saying that, all right, you know what? I know people want to see this person play, but he's got to make it for another 50 games and into finals and beyond. Or you look at it's like a racehorse. You don't want to stress the racehorse. You don't want to break it down so it can't finish the race. You got to stretch these guys out and let them finish the race. Even the commissioner was kind of sympathetic to this. He's like, I understand. People come to see people.
Right.
They're paying to fill the stands to see these top players. But the coaches got to be able to make the decision.
I want you now to put on your executive hat.
Yep.
Because, yes, you feel bad for Rich,
Totally.
his wife, and their son.
Totally.
That just dropped $2,500 on these tickets, and the star player is no longer playing. Imagine this. It's a Saturday night. The Disney, a subsidiary of Disney, is ESPN.
Yes.
ESPN pays the NBA just shy of $2 billion a year.
give or take a little bit of change.
Technically $1.9 billion.
Yes.
Their marquee game for the week is that specific game.
Right.
How would you feel as the corporate exec?
The top players better be on the court.
Gotcha. Want to throw something else at you? Why didn't we see this issue back in the days with Barkley and Magic and Bird and all of this stuff? I mean, I know people like to say, "Oh, it's not like how it used to be," and the old guys like us are always, railroading the young guys out there. How come we didn't see this stuff back then?
I don't know, because did the older guys just have more heart?
I don't know.
I mean, that's what it comes down to. It's like you're right. They used to get out there. They would play.
Yeah.
And it's all season.
Right.
You don't see some of the flopping around on the ground fouls. You don't see you took a hit. All right, you took a hit. Get up, man up, go play.
Right.
I don't know. That's a good question. Is this more now? I mean, I have no idea. Do we have more ex-player coaches now who are sympathetic to this and are like, when my day it was so rough, let me make it a little easier for these guys because I know they're taking a beating? I don't know. That's just conjecture.
Right. I just know this much. When everyone was screaming about Steph Curry two years ago, you had a lot of the older players saying, no one's guarding him.
Right.
And we would catch him. We would, check him at the 3/4 court line, before he even got over half court. So all of the shenanigans and everything else like that would be done. I'm just saying, from a point of view, it's just different because we see things differently. Yes, we have years on us,
right?
But we're like, all right, we've seen a couple of generations of this league,
right?
And it just, I don't know, it seems different. This is Late Night Parents. Ways to follow the show is latenightparents.com. We were just talking about a couple of topics, Biggie Smalls, the NBA, March Madness. But for the tail end of the show, we wanted to discuss Totally Tech. And I wanted to make sure we left enough time to totally dive in on this topic.
Okay, which one?
Well, one of them I want to talk about is WikiLeaks. I was in my office and I was streaming on C-SPAN and I saw, a certain individual and, we saw data dumps this week, 8,000 plus documents.
Yep.
We saw individuals talking about, exploits with tech companies. We heard about TVs used as listening devices.
Right.
For techs like us, we always knew this.
Right. The capability was always there.
Before we delve into it, I just want to share a story with you.
Okay.
So last night, it was daylight savings time.
Yep.
Had to recognize that.
Yep.
So maybe about 3 o'clock in the morning, or it could have been 4 o'clock at that time. I'm not even sure.
Or 2 o'clock. I think it's 2 o'clock when everything switches
forwards. Heard a couple of beeps. And I sat up like the Undertaker.
Like, what was that?
I said, what was that? Because, everything's heightened.
Yep.
And I'm looking around like, okay, it's not Alexa. It's not this. And I'm checking, and I'm like, okay, it's my laptop, the lid was closed. Beep, beep, beep.
Right. Oh, what was that?
I stood up. Mm-hmm. I went outside to see if the Samsung TV was on.
At least the camera was, right?
Right. So I went to my wife's computer.
Yep.
She had one of her books on the keyboard. Because I was about to just pull the plug on it.
On everything.
On everything. Rich, you want to talk about just being so shook? But I just wanted to share that story with you.
That's a good one.
What's your take on this past week? WikiLeaks and, them mentioning Apple and Google and Microsoft and Samsung and...
I mean, I don't know. I'm like on the fence as far as WikiLeaks goes.
Okay.
You know, I mean, from the government security side of things,
Okay.
I err on the government making us as secure as possible.
Yes.
There shouldn't be invasions of privacy, but they should be able to do just about what's necessary within the limits of ensuring our safety, especially in these days and times. Does that mean I support them having cameras watching me walk around the house? No. On my TV? No. No, it doesn't. And as far as that goes, that actually, unfortunately, because I was most curious about that too, did a little bit of research, and unfortunately, that was like on a very limited run of Samsung TVs with an outdated updated OS rather.
Okay.
So people really don't have to worry about that one too much.
Right.
That was a limited thing. But this shouldn't be a surprise, because let's go back to when the government asked Apple to hack into a certain phone for them.
You did mention this.
And Apple said, no, we're not going to do that. And the government said, okay.
This is before the show. This is podcast.
This is podcast days.
This is podcast days.
Government broke into it.
Okay.
Said, neener. We're into it, and now we can do it again.
Right.
Well, they didn't say that part, but if they
kinda
did it once, that means they could do it again and again.
Right.
Now, what you wonder is, because it's coming out with so many different vendors, if I don't want to say complicity, but if the vendors allowed or gave limited permissions for these things to happen, because granted, it's the CIA, it's the government, they can pretty much sneak into anything they want to sneak into, but to be able to get code into the devices to the point where the code survives a wipe, the code can fix itself, the code will survive malware, virus scans, all kinds of things to rebuild itself. That means it almost has to be there while the devices are being manufactured.
Okay.
It's kind of hard to get something into a system at that level. That, again, I have no proof, no evidence. This is just all thought, speculation. But there's got to be a little bit more to it than just, they broke into the phone, they broke into this, they're finding ways to watch us.
If you weren't a tech, and all of this is going on now, would you say to yourself, hey, let me make sure the latest code is on my TV and on my devices?
Yes. Well, see, if I'm not a tech, I might not even understand what that means.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of what goes on. Or you have a lot of people like, how many times have you gone to someone and said, have you run your Windows updates? No, I don't do that because it slows my machine down. Oh yeah, I see it sitting there and it's not there.
Right.
People just don't understand, or
no, they don't.
They may just not want to do it. So yes, I mean, if I had a little bit of technology, we'll say,
okay,
yes, I would say all the time, let me make sure everything is updated, that I'm allowing my devices to provide themselves the greatest amount of security as possible. Firmwares definitely need to be updated, because what I think a lot of people don't understand is that updates are not done because the vendor just feels like adding in a feature.
Right.
These days, updates are done because they have found a security issue of some sort, and they found a way to patch it, and they can push that patch to your system.
Right.
And that doesn't just mean, as you said, it doesn't just mean like Windows updates on your computer or iOS updates on your Mac. It means doing, if on your router, every once in a while, log into your router, which you should know your password for your router and have changed the password on your router from the default. Log into your router, check if there's an update available from the manufacturer. Go on your computer. If you understand enough about computers to know what the BIOS is, the manufacturers release BIOS updates for the computers. Go on there, download the recent BIOS updates for your computers. Make sure everything is updated to the latest specs that the manufacturers will support, because there's a reason why they've pushed these updates.
I got to tell you, as we segue to our good friends at Verizon Fios, allows you to order Fios on demand,
credit card,
with a debit or credit card. They're getting there.
That's
they're
big.
getting there.
So now, see, that just means now you have to watch the credit card that you've given your kids and everyone, because now where they had to get the approval to put it on the bill before.
Oh yeah,
it's like, let's put the credit card in, and whoosh, there it goes. I think that's a interesting move, though. I was kind of just curious as to what really drove that, because it seems like it adds another layer in that But I didn't see a need for. But obviously, there's some purpose for it.
I didn't either. Also, with the whole FiOS prepaid,
Right?
I just they're getting to where they need to get to. It's kind of like stuff we've talked about years ago, saying, "Oh, Apple needs to produce a phone where it's if they want to garner a specific market, they're looking for a certain demographic, then you go with a prepaid type option."
Right.
And they went with a phone that was made with plastic.
Yeah,
What was that?
yeah.
I don't even know how it sold, but
the Apple device, the 5Cs.
yeah,
they were pretty popular.
pretty popular. I mean, you would think there would be a 6C or there would be a 7C.
That's true. We didn't really see that. The SC, no, it's metallic.
That's metallic.
Yeah.
Something that's just cheaper, but it's good to see along with, because I look at like Verizon as being like a legacy company.
Right.
But it's morphing.
Right.
It's morphing because, especially if you're bleeding
hemorrhaging money.
subscribers.
That could be part of why they did that, because what that does eliminate is billing.
Yes.
So now there's no collections. So people can't sit there and just, all right, let me put up a movie a day for 6 months until they stop, until they cut me off.
Right.
It's like, oh, you want to see it? Pay up front. Pay it now.
Front. Right.
Enjoy yourself.
It's I don't know. It's something I like.
So I wonder now, will this lead to even more of an on-demand? You want to do your gold level movies on demand for a month. Pay it now. Just pay it a la carte.
As we go there, what are you binging right now?
I'm just finishing a couple of things. So I just finished Westworld.
Okay.
Very entertaining.
I watched the first episode. Couldn't
get into it.
Not totally.
The Western. I mean, the first episode they let you know that it was robots, but they didn't really go into storyline and all. I'd say give it 2 or 3 more episodes.
Okay.
And if you don't like it, that's understandable. That's all right. And Peaky Blinders. Good show. The best way to describe Peaky Blinders is kind of like Sons of Anarchy meets 1914.
Ah, okay.
All right. It's a crew. There's a leader, young guy, all the in battles there, the other gangs that they're against. Good show. 3 seasons, like 6 or 7 episodes, or 7 or 8 episodes per season. Great show. And of course, I've been watching the Grand Tour because I guess got to watch something hard.
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely. I'm caught up. I was always a fan of The Good Wife.
Yes.
I'm not afraid to say that either.
That's all right.
I used to watch it on Sunday nights. It's not like you're watching Army Wives.
Right.
I mean, come on. But this is Late Night Parents. Ted and Rich are here just yapping, talking about who's binging what. Ways to listen to the show. You can always catch us on latenightparents.com. You can hear our radio show.
Something I just remembered. I do need to give someone a shout out. We're doing it a little early.
Okay.
So a young lady that used to work for me.
Okay.
But before you and I met. If you can believe how long that goes back. Ages ago. Young lady used to work for me. Always a talented young lady. She moved out to another state. Moved on with her life. Always had wanted to be an entertainer.
Okay.
In the last couple of years, she's been really pushing and starting a singing career. And
J-Lo?
No. The next J-Lo.
Okay.
Her name is Aisa Torres, and her partner and recently engaged. So congratulations, Aisa and TNT, The Nasty Tone. But she's got a single out on the radio. It's just hit. She's got a record deal. She just signed.
Oh, wow.
Everyone get out there. Go on iTunes. Go on Spreaker. Go wherever you can get music. Look for Aisa Torres. That's Aissa Torres. The name of the song is Bounce.
Okay.
It's got a nice little club vibe to it. She's on the radio.
Nice.
You may even get to hear it if you listen to those stations up here in New York.
Okay.
So definitely wanted to give her a shout out, a congratulations, and everyone go out there, spend that $1 and buy that song.
Nice. That's a nice promo right there.
Yeah, she deserves it. She's been working hard at this, really hard at this.
Good. hey, I want to just wrap it up and say Innovation Nation,
Mm-hmm.
and The Good Fight.
The Good Fight.
Both streaming on CBS
Okay.
streaming service.
Yep.
Great shows. It's just imagine The Good Wife with F-bombs and everything else.
Okay.
It's like a Netflix show.
Okay.
You know, I still haven't, and Innovation Nation is just a totally geeked out show.
Of course. Good. Got to have one of those.
You know, it's 20 minutes.
Okay. Oh, it's quick.
Yeah, it's quick.
Okay.
It's quick. What else? Yeah, I'm thinking that those are the only things that I'm binging right now. You know,
I'm looking forward to a couple of shows. I'm looking forward to Iron Fist.
really, I read a really kind of poor review.
Really? Don't burst my bubble.
Yeah, I read a kind of poor review, and I was just like, I saw Logan.
You saw Logan?
I saw Logan.
I saw Get Out.
You saw Get Out.
Saw Get
I
Out
wish I would have
today.
saw Get Out.
I wish I had seen Logan. So we'll do a spoiler-free review here if we can, off the cuff. Get Out was good movie.
Okay.
Predictable.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, it's the first outing, I guess, for Jordan Peele to be a director. He did a great job with that.
Right.
And I am giving him extra kudos because he didn't give himself a cameo, at least that I noticed.
Perfect.
All right, he just
Perfect.
he just wrote and directed, didn't put himself in front of the camera on this. The acting was great. I have no complaints as far as that. The acting was great. The story was entertaining. It did have a couple little twists here. It just didn't grab me. That's all. I'm not a big horror type of guy, and this led more on the horror side with a few comedic bits and just storyline bits. I'd say see it. I would say see it.
Did you read the Old Man Logan comic?
No, and we talked about this like a couple of years ago before they even talked about the movie.
Don't read it if you're going to go see the movie.
Okay. Well, okay.
If you read it,
Yep. Then the movie's in the trash.
well, not totally in the trash, but you're thinking Old Man Logan.
All right. How many books in this series? If I read it.
Oh, it's quick.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a quick
All
series, but
Okay.
and it's like, Logan 50 years out.
Right.
This was like Logan 20 years out.
Right. Because Professor X is still alive.
Right. And, in the book, he hadn't used his claws in 50 years.
Oh, really? Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So, and this, Logan was just like, you're thinking Old Man Logan, and you're like, okay, he's slightly graying, but he's
still the powerhouse Logan that he always is.
right.
But shouldn't he always be that?
Yeah, he should. He should.
Muscles can always regenerate.
And I don't want
Adamantium is adamantium.
I don't want to spoil it.
Don't
I'm
spoil.
just going to say the ending was just like, that's it.
One of those. All right. Well, I definitely intend on watching Logan. So that's maybe next weekend.
We now know the first 3 words that Luke Skywalker says in The Last Jedi
We do? I didn't see that.
to
Go
Rey.
ahead. What are they? You can tell me.
Who are you?
I am so stoked
Yeah.
for this December.
Yeah, I really am.
December
I really am.
15th, I believe it is.
I really am.
Right in the middle of finals.
It's
I am
gonna
stoked.
be, yeah, I'm totally psyched out about that. Twitter has a sensitive account feature that's pretty messy. All those accounts that have eggs that are always,
Right.
ripping people
Yep.
and everything
Yep.
else like that. There's a sensitivity feature that they rolled out, and it was in a messy way, Rich.
So is this supposed to give people the ability to mark another account as a spam account? Noise account?
Yeah, it's going to give them, because, you have someone famous send out a tweet.
Right.
Or let's just say the presidential candidates this year.
Right.
Someone sends out a tweet, and you're getting 1 million responses back from people that are eggs.
Right.
And if you're being abusive, it's like, oh, okay. reduce the abusive comments.
And crack the egg?
Yeah, and crack the egg. Crack the egg, man. I don't know. It still remains to be seen. But they could have did it a little bit, it's easy for us to sit on the side and say, you have 450 million accounts.
Right.
Why didn't you do it this way?
Right.
We don't deal with that during our day jobs. It's a much smaller number.
450.
It's I don't know. It's one of those things where you kind of sit there and say, well, this could have been done a little bit better.
But that's an interesting point, though. I mean, what do they do? What can they do? How do you control it? I mean, granted, sure, you don't want to necessarily step on anything free speech related, because people, if someone posts a post on Twitter, no matter who it is, it's now in the public,
right? And
everyone has the right to respond in any appropriate way they want to. I guess the key word being appropriate, but then who defines appropriate?
That's true. It's it's a hot button issue.
Yep,
it's a hot button issue. So I sent out a tweet this week about making basketball shorts.
I saw that.
And a couple of people hit me on the side. We're like, okay, are you okay? I'm just thinking back to, you look at it nowadays and you see the shorts are basically down to their ankles.
They're at their ankles, yeah.
Versus the days of Magic Johnson or, Dr. J.
Dr. J. Dr. J was the famous one. ABA shorts.
Shorts. Bucky Ricks. I mean, jeez. I don't know your take on that. I just miss the old NBA. I think we all do.
Yeah, and again, it goes back to, has the money ruined it? Because let's face it, they make proportionally so much more than they did back in the day.
That and everyone wanting to be their own brand,
right?
And everyone is worried about, we've beaten the topic up about people wanting to team up with this one and team up with that one, and where the competition goes, and AAU's destroyed all of this. Everything is the blame,
right,
for what it is now,
for what it's become. But then, so the question then maybe is better: how do you fix it?
I don't know if you can,
because it's not like the rules of the game are at fault here.
I think it's just too far gone.
It's the mentality.
It's the mentality, and it's the precursors to it.
Right.
The one and dones.
Right.
Hey, I'm just going to show up for one semester and
then that's it.
I'm out.
Right.
So World Baseball Classic. Very interesting. Go USA.
Yeah,
they lost last night to Dominican Republic.
Okay.
But it's good stuff. I'm excited for baseball to be back. I'm excited for a lot of things. Grateful to our distributors who play the show during the week, especially this great station here. I don't know. I think that's about it.
This is good. Yeah, I am excited because of the nice weather coming around. I was looking at the bikes in the garage today. Like, I should fire them up. I was making sure things were lined up properly, but right next to the bikes is the snowblower.
Okay.
So looking at the bikes, saying, I should start them up. They haven't run in a couple of months just to make sure the oil's nice and distributed. And
right.
They're good. Not to take them out. I wasn't taking them out. I wasn't thinking about that.
All right. That's in due time.
Oh, yeah.
That's next month.
Yep. And I'm thinking this year I might get to a NASCAR race this year. I'm thinking about going down to Dover.
Really?
I have family down there.
Yes.
So, and literally 2 miles from the track.
Oh, you gotta go.
Yeah, there's almost no excuse.
You gotta go. So wait, are you gonna ride your bike down there?
No, I won't do that.
It's like
I will ride the bike down there to see family, but not for the race.
Okay.
But yeah, so I'm thinking about doing that. Maybe take Linda and go see family, go see a race, go enjoy life for a little bit.
Dude, we about to get on up out of here. We miss Dr. Michele. We miss a lot of things. She'll be back next week.
Yep, she's in the air right now, I believe, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Best ways to get in contact with you.
As always, on Twitter, it's RichieV_NY. That's RICHIEV_NY. Or on Facebook at Facebook.com/TheRealRichieV.
And I am Real Ted Hicks across the board. Happy to be here, and it's a wrap.
Everyone have a great week. See you next time.